Welcome back. Not Eastern nor Western, Islamic Republican. Rejecting the influence of both Soviet and American superpowers, Iran set out to create history in 1979. The Islamic Revolution toppled the US-backed Shah of Iran and brought hardline clerics to power. What did the revolution mean for its people and the world? Was it a success? Well, the ideology of the revolution was to create a nationalist Shia Islamic state. It opposed Western and secular principles. The revolution aimed to develop the countryside where most of its people lived. Today, most of Iran does boast of having electricity, running water, better medical and education facilities. The regime change led to allies such as Syria, Venezuela, China, Russia, North Korea. Iran also supports Hamas and Hezbollah. This has helped position Iran as a key regional player. The West and the Arab world have great concerns about Iran's growing power and its controversial nuclear program. The Iranian government has been criticised for its record of human rights abuses against its own citizens. Well, we're still joined by our guests in Tehran, Sayed Mohammed Marandi, in Washington, D.C., Patrick Clausen, and in Doha, Hadi Amr. Hadi Amr, if I could come to you first of all. 30 years of revolution. There was previously that sense that they wanted to export the revolution. Is that ambition still there, do you think?
I think primarily Iran wants to be a regional leader, to be a leader in the Muslim world, not just of the Shia world, but in the Muslim world. You see that in Iran's alliance with Hamas in Palestine, a Sunni Arab movement. That's Iran's ambition. I don't know that they want to still are realistically trying to quote unquote export the revolution, but they do see themselves as an emerging power. Oil prices last year helped bolster their confidence. And I think we're going to continue to see the central rift in the Middle East as a sort of Iran versus America rift, and that the Arab states and the Arab peoples are sorting themselves out as to which side of that divide that they are on.
Patrick Clausen, is that how you see it, a kind of rift with those two sides? And in that context, is there an appetite either on the side of Iran or on the American side for confrontation, or more of a desire for accommodation?
The United States side would be delighted if there was some kind of engagement that was some way to resolve the dispute between Iran and the international community about the nuclear and missile issue. But certainly seen from here, we would emphasize that the dispute that Iran is having is with the United Nations and the International Atomic Energy Agency. This is not a dispute between Iran and the United States. It's a dispute between Iran and a unanimous international community.
Okay, just
and
on that
indeed, every Muslim country, every Muslim country on the United Nations Security Council has voted in favor of the resolution sanctioning Iran. And so the idea in Tehran...
Yeah, just on that point, just want to go back to the satellite launch. You're mentioning there the kind of the infrastructure that's in place to deal with the issue of nuclear ambitions, and that there are international structures for that. But given that there are no treaties governing satellites and that kind of thing, how does the international community deal with that kind of technology, being developed?
Well, 4 Security Council resolutions have imposed sanctions on the export of ballistic missile technology and ballistic missile assistance to Iran, because the international community has decided that it is too dangerous for Iran to be pursuing that technology until Iran reestablishes confidence in the purely peaceful character of its nuclear program. So the international community has come together through its best hope, the United Nations, to say that this is too dangerous a technology for Iran to be pursuing until it resolves the dispute around its nuclear issue.
Okay, so Sayed Marandi, is the West right to be so anxious about Iran's territorial ambitions?
You mean technological ambitions?
Well,
I think
both,
that,
actually.
Well, Iran doesn't have any territorial ambitions. It's very happy with where it stands at the moment. I think your guess in Washington is mistaken. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not a democratic body. It is dominated by Western countries, and you can check that on the IAEA website. And the UN Security Council is not a democratic body either. And I don't think there are very many Muslim countries on the council anyhow. As I said before, the Islamic organization, the Islamic Conference Organization, the Islamic Conference Organization, which consists of all the Muslim countries in the world, backed Iran's nuclear program, and so did NAM. But the point really is that the United States is pressuring countries to stand up against Iran, and the propaganda campaign by the United States is really has been going on ever since the revolution itself. The revolution was a revolution of idealism. Iran wanted to be free and independent, and that is basically some of the central ideas that have been exported by the revolution. There was no attempt to overthrow countries. It was the idea itself, and Iran is pursuing its independence today through the pursuit of nanotechnology and others. Iran also, it's not a hardline regime. It's a country which supported the ANC in South Africa when the United States supported apartheid South Africa. It supported the Bosnians when the international community was indifferent to the massacres being carried out by the Serbs.
Hadi Amar, can I bring you in? I mean, the idea that it's not that kind of regime, is that something you would agree with?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify, Patrick, I was not talking about the satellite launch. I mean, I was talking about the nature of the relationship as it's perceived here on the Arab street. I think there are clearly tensions in the Arab world over, on the one hand, the nature of the Iranian regime, and on the other hand, what one could characterize as either the American or the American-led international efforts to, you know, put Iran under pressure to come clean on a bunch of issues. But I think what we really have, what people in the Arab world feel, they feel this tension between America on the one hand and Iran. Whether that is the situation or not, I can't say, but that's the tension that I think we feel. I think it's playing itself out in the politics of the region and the Arab summits and the post-Gaza situation.
How much though does the leadership in Iran actually come down to one person? I mean, Ahmadinejad has clearly made very inflammatory statements about Israel, but it's not a country that's governed by just one man, is it? Can you shed some light on us on, you know, how much influence the other players in Iran have on foreign policy and what decisions are made?
Clearly, there's the Iranian clergy, the Iranian presidency, the Iranian parliament, and there are different factions within that. There are different parts of Iranian society and the political leadership that want to take it in one direction or the other. But Iran has a president. Iran has a supreme religious leader, and those parties seem to be right now coming down on the side of taking Iran in this direction of confrontation with America or the international community.
Patrick Clausen, would you agree with that analysis, that it's partly the leadership? And if that's the case, when the elections come up in June, do you see if there is a change of leadership then, do you see things going in a different direction or staying the same?
Well, the real power figure in Iran is the supreme leader. His title may give you some idea of his powers. He's the commander-in-chief of the military. He has the authority to dismiss the president. So it's the supreme leader that we have to pay attention to. And I'm a firm believer that Iran's elections are on the principle of one man, one vote. That man is Khamenei, the supreme leader, and he gets to set the conditions and circumstances which decide who's going to be the next president. So we have to pay close attention to the presidential elections because they will be an important indication of which direction the supreme leader is going to be having Iran head in the future.
Okay, Mr. Morandi, there you are laughing. Is that an unfair characterization of what the supreme leader does? And do you think that Iran is heading in a different direction or not?
Yes, it's obviously not true. The supreme leader, as he calls it, has been elected by a council of experts, which is itself elected by the people. There are many checks and balances in the country, which I don't think we have time for right now. It is the most democratic country in the region, even by American standards, whether, you know, there are lots of problems with American democracy as well.
Okay, but
I don't believe that Iran is heading for confrontation.
Right, but is it heading for change as well? I mean, are you expecting the moderates to come through? Would you have Khatami come in, do you think? I mean, he suggested that he might stand for the presidency again.
Well, you know, I think that's the interesting thing about Iran. I don't want to say who's a moderate and who's extreme, because these are different people say it in different ways. But I think that's interesting in that in Iran, no one really knows what's going to happen. And that shows that it's a very vibrant society. And it also shows that public opinion in Iran is highly important for the leadership. Iran, though, I just wanted to point out, it is not trying to head for confrontation. If supporting the people of Gaza who were being slaughtered by Israel, if opposition to apartheid and racism and Zionism is confronting the international community, well, then that may be confrontational. But I think that many people in the region and beyond really have a great deal of sympathy for Iran's stance. And those who are truly opposed to Iran are often the elite in undemocratic pro-American regimes in the region.
Okay.
But I think that most people see beyond that.
Okay. Just on one quick question, Patrick Clausen, in a very short, well, if you can, biggest success and biggest failure of the Iranian Revolution?
Biggest success of the Iranian Revolution is establishing greater independence for Iran on international affairs. Biggest failure is that the people hate the regime, and that's why the supreme leader is so terrified that there could be what he calls a velvet revolution, which would quickly overthrow the regime, because he well understands that how vulnerable the regime is to overthrow.
Hadi Amr, biggest success and biggest failure?
I would say, look, first of all, the success, I agree with Patrick, actually, in the sense that the success of the regime was establishing independence. But I would say that the failure of the regime has been vis-a-vis its relations in the region, vis-a-vis its relations with America, vis-a-vis also sort of bringing more prosperity and more democracy for its people. And the biggest challenge will be for the United States is how to reach out to Iran at this time and reach a successful conclusion that is beneficial for both the American people and the Iranian people.
Syed Mohammad Marandi, very briefly, because we're running out of time, your chance for the biggest failure and the biggest success for the revolution?
I think the biggest success is its independence. Its failure was probably to combat the United States and its attempts in the region to isolate Iran. To an extent, Iran has had problems with many of its neighbors, but that to an extent has to do with the fact that those neighbors are not democratic, and they are ruled, some of them, by governments that are not very popular. And I think that Iran has many shortcomings, but if you look overall, despite the United States, it's achieved a lot.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you all three of you, Syed Mohammad Marandi, Patrick Clausen and Hadi Amr. Thank you. And thank you for watching this edition of Inside Story. We always welcome your comments and suggestions. Email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.